The reason why I am circling back to this issue today is because the Oklahoma Sheriff's Association has voiced their support for this Fight Act, which would increase their tools and sort of, they kind of basically, for the first time, the Sheriff's Association is taking a stance against cockfighting.
Yeah, but to understand it, if you read the book Pagan America, then you begin to understand that the animal rights laws, like the cockfighting law, they're based on paganism and animal worship. The Pagan Federation International's own definition of paganism is that paganism is a nature worshiping religion. Well, animals are part of nature, and it's literally our government and our state has enacted a law respecting the establishment of paganism and is trying to force the gamecock farmers into the religious beliefs of animal worship, paganism, uh, which is a violation of my rights under the First Amendment, not just freedom from government respected religion, but my free exercise of religion. Because in my Bible, as a Christian, it says in Genesis 1:26, it says God gave man dominion over the animals, earth, fish, and fowl. Well, dominion means control and rule. Who has the authority to supersede God and take that dominion away from me using the excuse that the animals I own take priority above that human right? It's a violation of both concepts of the First Amendment protections: freedom from government respected religion, and it's a violation of my free exercise of religion and exercising the dominion that God gave me over the animals I own.
So this is a religious issue for you?
Well, it's just uh, everything is about your freedom. God put the instinct in the gamecock to fight. I just simply perpetuate and honor that because I admire the courage and the fighting ability of a gamecock. And understand the Sheriff's Association, the leadership, they're fools because they're going out and advocating, knowing that every time they go out to make a raid, to make an arrest, to enforce any law, they create deputies, government, they create situations where they're going to use force. That force always includes the possibility of deadly force. So how did the Sheriff's Association answer the question? How many gamecock farmers is an acceptable number for deputies to kill to defend chickens that the individual owns? Because
Why would they be at risk of using force if you believe these events are not violent?
well, what do you mean? Because every time law enforcement officers go out to enforce a law, they create situations where they're going to use force. Ask George Floyd. Oh, no, you can't, can you? They're going to enforce the law. When they enforce the law, just like they did in Kiowa County over here, when they made the raid at the cockfight over there. First deputy on the scene pulls up inside of his vehicle, jumps out of his vehicle, pulls his service weapon and started shooting. The second deputy jumped out of his vehicle and yelled, "You're all committing a felony. Anyone that runs will be shot." These
Well, I
idiots
can't
are,
speak on, I can't talk about topics in Kiowa County that I'm unaware of, so I don't know that an officer jumped out of his car and started shooting. Uh, I don't know the situation behind that. You know what I mean?
no, because it's all on the court records.
Well, I haven't read those court records, so I
Yeah,
don't know
well,
the situation.
I was actually supposed to be the witness for the defense in the court case. I'm very well aware of that court case. And if you want the information involving that in that court case, the lawyer in Oklahoma City is the one that was for the gamecock farmers over there. That court case has been sitting there for 7 years now, and they will not walk into the courtroom. The prosecutors and the judge, they will not walk into the courtroom because of the arguments that we have put together, explaining how the animal rights laws, like the cockfighting law, violate the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment, by and through the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and about 12 amendments of the state constitution.
So do you believe that cockfighting, you believe cockfighting should be legal because it's within your right?
It is legal. The law is unconstitutional. Any law that is unconstitutional is an illegal law. That means the enforcement of the illegal law is actually an illegal act by the government. The statute is, there's numerous Supreme Court decisions that state that a law that is unconstitutional from the day it was enacted, not just the day that it was declared unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional from the day it was enacted.
But you have to take the issue of cockfighting to the Supreme Court for them to declare it's unconstitutional.
Yeah,
we can't just make that assumption on our own.
Oh, yes, we can, because every person has their own ideas and their own understanding of the Constitution of the United States. We don't have rulers in America. So our judges don't, like the Supreme Court, do not issue rulings. They give their opinion, and their opinion does not supersede my rights. See, Judge James Winchester, he's a member of the Humane Society of the United States. His wife is a member of the Humane Society of the United States. He's corrupt. He's not interested in the legality of this fight.
So you believe regardless of whether the state law, the federal law, or the Supreme, you just believe that no matter what the current status is, it is a legal thing to do.
Here's the thing. Yes.
No, I'm asking you a question. Do you believe?
Well, I understand you're asking me a question. The thing is what I'm telling you, the law is unconstitutional. Any law that is unconstitutional is illegal. The animal rights laws, I
believe it's legal.
I told you that how it violates the First Amendment. Make sure and use that in your presentation. Now, it violates the Fourth Amendment because the Fourth Amendment protects people from, as I grew up, it was well talked about, a man's home is his castle. You have the right to protect your castle. The castle doctrine even. You have the right to protect
the Constitution, all of these things, all of these issues are.
You have the right to privacy. You understand? That's what the Fourth Amendment gives you, the right to human right to privacy, God-given right from protection from warrantless searches. As I said, in my castle, I am king of my castle. I have total dominion and control over my castle. And I don't care if he's a judge or not, who is another man to sign a piece of paper authorizing government agents to kick in my door using the excuse that the animals I own take priority above my human rights? The only way that happens is when the government puts a higher value on a chicken than it does the rights of the human rights of the owner. That's wrong.
But
that's 100% wrong. And it violates the Eighth Amendment, the protection against cruel, unusual, and excessive punishment. What punishment is not excessive when a government agent is trying to punish me using the excuse that the animals I own take a higher priority?
Any law in the United States of America is argued around the definitions of other laws in the Constitution. That's how this all works, and we argue them through. Cockfighting in its current state, right, is illegal, and
No.
somebody needs to argue that it's unconstitutional in a court.
Well, the thing is I've written a book that explains that the law is unconstitutional.
But you
And
writing one book doesn't make it.
The legal arguments, I put the legal arguments in the book. The legal arguments prove that the law is unconstitutional. Those legal arguments have been used in courtrooms in Florida, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, even in Oregon. And almost every case they're used in, the court has done just like they've done in Kiowa County. They either dismiss charges or they immediately they no longer put the court case on the schedule, and they don't take them back to court. Mm-hmm. Because the law is unconstitutional. The law, and I've even started a YouTube channel that I explain how the animal rights laws violate the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, by and through the 14th Amendment. Now, this is not a game, because people have the right to their culture, their heritage, their agriculture industry, their property rights, their home, and their family. They have a right to protect those things. And we have government agents coming out today, making raids, threatening people, creating situations where they're going to use force and potentially hurt, cripple, or kill a human being using the excuse of a chicken. That means the government puts a higher value on that chicken than they do human rights. That's paganism.
Are you a cockfighter?
I own gamecocks. Yes, I do. I'm a gamecock farmer.
Huh?
I'm a gamecock farmer. Yes, I am. I am a gamecock farmer.
Do you fight them?
You harvest your gamecocks. You harvest your livestock. You harvest a goat by hanging it up by its back feet and you cut its throat. You harvest a fish by throwing it onto a block of ice and you allow it to suffocate. You harvest a racehorse by putting it on a racetrack and you run it around the racetrack. Every species.
I don't think that harvesting a racehorse is by going around a racetrack.
Sure it is.
What do you mean? When you're using the term harvest, what do you mean? You're
making an economic harvest, are you not?
Oh, you're making money.
You're making an economic harvest. The cattle rancher doesn't eat every cow he raises. He makes money from the cattle.
So
correct?
You
correct?
harvest.
Yes or no? Correct? Does a cattleman, does he eat every cow he raises? No.
No.
So he makes an economic harvest on the slaughter of his cattle when he sells them to somebody else to slaughter. Does he not?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's he's making an economic harvest on his livestock, correct?
So your economic harvest is fighting gamefowl.
The same way gamecocks have been harvested for more than 3,000 years. You compete them against another gamecock. You're testing them for the natural abilities that God put into the creature when he created the creature. The abilities of courage and offensive fighting ability, defensive fighting ability, athletic ability of movement. And that's you're harvesting your livestock. The racehorse owner puts his racehorse on a track and competes it against other racehorses. And if he's successful in his breeding program, then he's successful with his economic harvest by racing the animal. And his
Well, there are
bloodline,
some people who are against horse racing. I mean, that's kind of an issue too that I don't want to get into at all.
well, his bloodlines become more valuable, and that's a secondary harvest of his economic of the horse. And the same thing is true of a gamecock farmer. You're competing your animals, and you're trying to make it, if your bloodlines and your breeding program is successful, you make an economic harvest, but your bloodlines also go up in value. So you make a secondary economic harvest. And here in Oklahoma, they've enacted a law that deprives the gamecock farmer of their use of their animals. And so the law is in violation of the Fifth Amendment. Can you enact the same law against a cattle rancher? It's illegal to own and possess your cattle for the purpose and or with the intent of slaughtering your cattle because the job of the government is to protect the cattle from the cattle rancher.
As one I'm assuming goes or has been to cockfighting events based on what you're telling me, do you believe the notion that cockfighting events bring along with it other illegal activity?
No, there's no notion. Understand, if you criminalize a football, there are drugs at every football game that ever played. Okay. And if you criminalize football, or can you criminalize football because someone at the football game had drugs?
But football is not illegal on its own.
But if you criminalize football, you'd be doing the same thing. We're going to criminalize football because somebody at the football game had drugs. They're two separate issues. They're two separate events.
Well, that's
no, you're wrong. They're two separate events.
I didn't compare it to football. You did. I didn't compare it to football.
I'm telling you that the Gamecock event is separate than somebody that has drugs at the event. It actually deprives me of my Fourth Amendment right to equal protection of the law. Because if somebody was to show up at a football game with drugs, we could call the police and have them arrested. But if somebody, because I wouldn't want drugs at the football game. At the cockfight, if somebody shows up with drugs, we're at a disability.
Because you're at an illegal event.
When are you going to wrap your head around the fact that the law is unconstitutional, and any law that is unconstitutional is an illegal law?
Well, that's what I gather that you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Are you intelligent enough to understand the Constitution? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, then. Everybody is intelligent enough to understand the Constitution. The Constitution is not written in ambiguous language where you have to have an interpreter. This court, there's even Chris Ann Hall talks about, a former federal prosecutor talks about, the Supreme Court does not issue rulings because in America we don't have rulers. They only give their opinion. They issue opinions. Their opinion does not supersede my rights. Period. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Article 6, paragraph 2. And my First Amendment right, my free exercise of religion, is being violated because my free exercise of religion is exercising the dominion that God gave me over the animals I own. To try to force an animal rights law on me, that is, the government is codifying and adopting respect for the pagan religion and trying to force me into paganism and animal worship. And I refuse to comply with that. And the law violates the Fourth Amendment. When I grew up, it was well talked about. A man's home is his castle. And you have total control and rule over your castle. It's the purpose of the Fourth Amendment is to create zones of privacy. And in your privacy, your right to do what you want on your property is guaranteed as long as you're not violating the rights of another human being. So who is a judge, even a judge or somebody in a robe, to sign a piece of paper authorizing government agents to kick in my door to my castle to create a situation where they may use force and kill me to defend the chicken that I own? That means the chicken takes a higher priority above my human rights. Now, I would be protecting my rights to my life, my liberty, my pursuit of happiness, my culture, my heritage, my property, my family, and my home. And that's what they would be taking away from me, using the excuse that a chicken is a priority. It's also a violation of the Fifth Amendment because animals are property. And my property rights exist just like the cattle rancher's property rights exist. He has a right to harvest his livestock. I have the right to harvest my livestock. We have the right to use our property for the very reason we own our property. The equivalent of the cockfighting law is to enact a law saying it's illegal to own and possess beef cattle for the purpose and or with the intent of slaughtering beef cattle.
You have gone through the amendments already, so I understand your stance. I promised you an opportunity to give the cockfighter's stance or gamefowl harvester and
The farmers, gamecock farmers.
Gamecock farmer. And so I wanted to allow you that, but now we're kind of talking in circles now, but I understand what you're saying. I understand your stance on it, and it will be relayed in my reporting. That's really the best I can do. Otherwise, it seems like we're kind of going back and forth. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me just explain it in this fashion. You harvest a beef cow by shooting it in the head with a gun. You harvest a goat by hanging it up by its back feet and you cut its throat. You harvest a fish by throwing it onto a block of ice and you allow it to suffocate. The point is, every species has its own method of harvest. And even within the same species, you have different methods of harvest, such as dairy cattle and beef cattle, quarter horses and race horses, egg-laying chickens and broiler chickens. All of them differ in their method of harvest. Gamecock farmers and ranchers are exactly that. We are farmers and ranchers that are attempting to harvest our livestock to earn a living and provide for our families. And we either have that God-given constitutionally protected right, or there is no constitution. Because the government is coming out, making raids, ripping our families apart, pointing guns at us, creating situations where they may kill the farmer to defend the livestock, the animal that the farmer owns. And what is the definition of communism? The abolition of private property rights. What animals are property. And here the government is creating laws depriving people of the ownership rights of their animals.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we will
just give us an honest interview, and I'll appreciate you very greatly if you give us an honest interview.
Well, I'm just gonna tell what you told me.
Yeah. Well, that last statement, explaining it, that right there, it says it outright. Understand, anytime law enforcement officers enforce a law, because I spent 22 years in the Army, I retired from the military. And after I retired, I used to teach use of force to security forces, law enforcement. Every time they go out to enforce a law, they create situations where they're going to use force. That force always includes the possibility of deadly force.